The concern with TikTok that Congress expressed was just the massive gathering and aggregation of data and usage data and profile data about American users that could, with a push of a button, be put into the hands of the Chinese Communist Party, who under the Chinese laws have the ability to, again, very easily gain access to that data. So the concern is really a national security concern that Congress was worried about, potential blackmail of government employees, potential extortion, the ability for an app controlled by a foreign adversary to push out content strategically around certain world events to influence American opinion. And the best evidence of that is that when it came up time for the vote to happen in Congress to ban the app, guess what type of content TikTok was pushing out? They were pushing out call your senator and call your rep content. So that was pretty much exhibit A of what the concern was. For the app to really get clearance under the law, it needs to engage in what's called a divestiture, which is that the ownership of the company needs to be really divested or separated from any potential Chinese control. So President Trump has appointed J.D. Vance to be the person leading the charge to try to negotiate some resolution. And there's really no clarity yet or signal as to what that form might be. There's been talk about potential American government owning a piece of it, other investors coming in to own a piece, but it's still about 2 months too early to know exactly what the outcome is going to be. I would expect it to come down to the wire, not only because of the massive problem that needs to be solved, but also perhaps to try to stave off some litigation that if they announce it too early, they could be mired in court again. So if I had to guess, I would think that we're going to be bumping up very close to the April 5th deadline before we hear anything definitive. It was a very interesting social experiment to see the app sort of disappear and go dark for a period of time. Meta was very anxious and interested in that because they were hoping to see some sort of flocking of engagement over to Instagram as a surrogate replacement. So it was so short-lived, there was probably not really much insight that we could draw. But one thing I did see that was very interesting was that the secondary market for phones that had the app pre-installed on them were going for a premium because you were unable to download from the Apple Store the app. So on eBay and in other places, there was actually a touted advertisement that this phone came with TikTok pre-installed because it provided that much value. So I thought that was an interesting insight into the value that these 150 million users have with respect to the app. I haven't seen any data to suggest that it resulted in more usage, less usage. I think that the difficulty of getting it on the Apple Store until very recently probably didn't help the numbers of TikTok at all. So I think time will tell. As we get closer to the 5th, you might see a run up in downloads before the 5th, given the uncertainty in April about what the actual outcome is going to be. But again, I think it's one of those stories that is evolving daily and weekly. And as the best evidence today, we're recording one day after the app got put back by surprise in the App Store. So that's a very fluid situation. No, I think the microscope that we see TikTok under is really unique to them because of the connection to the Chinese Communist Party. I think as a broader perspective, though, big tech is under the microscope as it relates to children's usage. I think the next big debate and discussion we're going to have in this country is really more about device usage and big tech apps and algorithms and screen time and mental health and issues as it relates to children under the age of 13 and in between that 13 and 18-year-old or age 2. I think from the TikTok perspective, the thing we want to keep an eye on is what signals the White House is giving about either optimistic indications of there's going to be a plan versus how tight-lipped they are. I infer from the lack of news means that there's no good news to share, and that it's a very delicate, sensitive situation with a lot of moving parts, and the last thing the administration wants to do is to start to send signals out to the marketplace that there is going to be this outcome or that outcome. So as a person who watches this very closely, it's frustrating to go week by week and not really hear or see much, and that the biggest news of the day is the fact that the app is back available on the App Store, and not any meaningful discussion about what it's going to take to structure a deal that satisfies the law. And again, remember, this is going to be a two-step process. There's going to have to be a deal in principle, and then that deal is going to need to get done in record fashion by April 5th in order to meet that deadline. And again, another open question is whether the president would find a way, legal or otherwise, to give another extension. That's also something that could be on the table. Not suggesting that's a realistic possibility, but we've seen crazier things happen before when it comes to how the law gets implemented, enforced, and regulated. And again, it's a lot of moving targets with TikTok.